I guess we have never explained what V Unfiltered actually mean. V is for Vanessa. That's my name. Originally, I was planning on doing this podcast because I felt like I had a lot to say. And Maria was already busy with her other two podcasts that included skincare routines.
Yeah.
By the way, great because she helped me a lot with mine. And so when she told me she was no longer doing them, I was like, you're coming with me. Because it's always good to have these kind of conversations with your friends. And it was a blessing to have you come to V Unfiltered. So that's what V Unfiltered means.
Yes, she's V and I'm unfiltered.
We make a great combo. And this was brought up by one of our listeners, Andrea, who we're going to be responding her question today, where she's like, oh, I don't know what the V stands for. And I said, well, what do you think it stands for? And she goes, well, vaginas.
But it's not Vaginas Unfiltered. It's V as in Vanessa Unfiltered.
V is for Vanessa, not vaginas.
Sex. Relationships.
Careers.
And just plain life. From the experience of two Latina actresses.
Welcome to V Unfiltered. Hey, I'm Vanessa Tomasino.
And I'm Maria Bruzon.
Welcome to episode 2. And this question comes from Andrea, Vaginas Unfiltered. And it says the following. This is what we're going to try to answer today. She says, how do you evolve to open and know yourself sexually in a country like El Salvador, where everything is censored? What obstacles did you have to overcome?
Okay. So I think
that's a loaded question. Let's just start by saying that. Okay.
I think we should talk about where we're from because we've never really touched that.
Absolutely. For those of you who are listening to us for the very first time, Maria and I are from a country called El Salvador. El Salvador. We are in Central America. Mm-hmm. We are the tiniest country in Central America. We're below Guatemala, below Mexico. El Salvador appears progressive in many ways because we do have a lot of things and technology. We have Bitcoin as legal tender. However, academic studies show that El Salvador is on the spectrum of conservative. It's actually very conservative, meaning that Salvadoran culture does not, and the people do not accept scientific facts. And instead, they follow emotions, they follow religion and mysticism that has been passed by previous Salvadoran generations.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Hence why this podcast is in English.
Yes.
Also, we want to put it out there. It's some kind of protection that we feel like the only type of filter that we'll have is we're going to do it in English because we don't think everybody's ready for what we're going to talk about in the podcast. But yes, it is a very conservative country, and it's a problem when it comes to sexuality, I think.
Definitely. And part of the being conservative, we've mentioned religion, but we haven't mentioned patriarchy and what we call machismo, which is very ingrained in our society, making it very challenging for people who are not men to explore their sexuality, or at least heterosexual male, or who do not participate in heterosexual normative sexuality. It's a problem. That being said, Maria, I also do think that this sort of repressive and censored sexuality in our country also affects men. Because I do think that they are unable to explore their sexuality, which is very individual, by the way, because they're bombarded by definitions of masculinity and examples of pornography that is very heterosexual. And they feel like they have to follow those steps and learn from that. So the country is a problem for pretty much everybody when it comes to, I mean, we love our country. We're not criticizing the country. We're criticizing the inability to understand science and how important it is sexual health and the development of sexuality by making it taboo or censored. So that's all we're saying, right? Yes. And we have to address the elephant in the room. Where's the elephant?
Where is it?
Where is
Oh, it's
it?
me.
It's right here. We need to acknowledge something that is very clear to the audience. We're two Latina women from El Salvador speaking English who have experiences living abroad
Yeah.
that affects our sexuality.
Hmm.
So, in our case, in a positive way, because it allows us to explore. But that benefit is not for every Salvadoran person.
No, it's not the same for everyone. For everyone, because we've had the privilege to be able to do that
Hmm.
and to live that and experience that and say like, "Whoa, wait, this is what this is," and like, this is what it feels like to explore or to enjoy something
Hmm.
and not feel guilty, because I feel like some people make you feel guilty in this country when you like something or you explore something sexual and you
Hmm.
didn't know about that until you never know what's out there until you taste it.
Hmm. And it's part of the conversations that we're not having, right? The censorship that you're talking about, making things taboo. It's part of this culture of the machismo, patriarcado, right? The patriarchy, where women are supposed to have sexual encounters. And here's what's complicated, and we can talk about that in a
Hmm.
while, where women are supposed to have sexual encounters only when they are married. Okay. But they also, so they have to be virgins till they get married,
Hmm.
but then they have to be wild in bed as if they know
Yeah.
what they're doing. And people are admiring people like Beyonce, like Carol G, and all these sexy women who are very sexually empowered.
Yeah.
And men are like, oh, we want a woman like that. But then when they see Salvadoran women, they're like, no, you can't be like that. You have to be a Madonna. Like, you have to
Yeah.
be perfect, white, virgin.
Pure.
So women are getting these mixed messages. What am I supposed to be? Can I explore my sexuality only when I am married? But then when I'm married, I don't know what I'm doing. So he's going to have an affair with someone else because I don't know what
He's
I'm
not
doing.
satisfied, or you maybe
And
you just don't click. There's no chemistry.
yes, or you're not satisfied. And then you're
Yeah.
stuck in a marriage where you're like, I'm not getting what I need. And then you become frustrated, or then your partner starts saying you're unable to feel anything. And
Hmm.
it's just a mess. And so we grew up with that problem as women, is what are we supposed to be in our sexuality? So that's what we're trying to, what we're trying to say with Maria when we're starting this conversation, is we have the privilege to explore, to talk about it, to live other people's experiences through our friends
Yeah.
who have suffered from things, or have explored in a positive way. We live through them, but we have that opportunity that not every Salvadoran
No.
person has. So we're very aware. I don't know if I told you, Maria, that I lived in Paris when I was a
Hmm. Yes, you
teenager.
did.
I was 13 years old, exactly after you get your period.
Hmm.
Just so you know, when women get their period, I don't know how it was for you, but for me, it was
It was
terrible.
terrible.
Hormonally, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. It's like you hate yourself. I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, what is this? I was a kid. I was a kid. And now I'm like, I'm supposed to be a woman. And everything starts changing. I stopped talking to my mom because I felt
Yeah.
weird. I stopped going out with my dad because I felt weird. There's something hormonally that disorients you when you're transitioning
Not only
sexually.
that, I feel like this is a perfect segue to like talk about sex education in this
Yes.
country.
Hmm.
One of my friends, when she got her period for the first time, she didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Hmm.
And every time she bled, she threw away her panties.
Oh my God. She's probably thinking she's dying.
She thought she was dying, and she threw away each panty she wore because
Hmm.
she didn't know what was going on. And I feel like
That's not cool.
that's a problem.
Hmm.
You know, I remember like having the bare minimum for sex education in my school, and that's a private American school in El
Yeah.
Salvador.
Yes.
And I had no idea how to navigate that world even when I was in college, when I was 18 years old, and I literally had to figure it out by through friends,
Yeah.
through health services in the school. And I think that that's one of the main core problems in the society. Like, we don't have sex education.
No, no, nobody talks about this. Not in school, not even in a biological way,
So
you
how are
know?
we supposed to know like what to do
I don't know.
in any scenario?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have sex, if you get pregnant, if you have an STD, like the stigma behind STDs and STIs
Yeah.
is really overwhelming.
Yes.
Like, people don't know how to manage it emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
let alone physically with whatever
Yes.
symptoms you may be experiencing. So I think it's really problematic nowadays.
And two things. We learn sex education from music, like Bad Bunny saying, "I'll get you the Plan B," and people go, "What's Plan B?"
That's, yeah.
You
I
know?
love you.
Thank you, Bad Bunny. We love you. You know, you're educating us through your songs.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't have to be like that. You should be getting that education at home, in school, or have public spaces of health. You know that a country is providing for people to get that education. So that's one thing. The other thing that really bothers me is that in a country that has high statistics on rape and sexual abuse for women, for girls, and for boys, why are we not having this conversation about how to take care of our bodies, try to understand our sexuality so we can be empowered enough and assertive enough to say no?
And make a decision. I said, like,
Yeah, make a decision. You know, you're dating someone, they're like, "Oh, girl, let's do it." Have that assertiveness to say, "You know what? No." Because hormonally this could happen to me, like just have knowledge and have the information that you need to make an informed decision. We don't have that. So that's a problem. So coming back to my education when I was 13. So I got my period when I was 12. I was horrified, traumatized, embarrassed. I felt guilty. I felt dirty. I felt like my life had changed. And I just remember thinking, I hate my life. Is this going to happen every month? Because I feel like I'm dying. And so I had the chance to go with my mom to Paris because she's a doctor, and she learned how to do liver transplants, and she was working at a hospital there. So she said, "Come with me." So I went hesitantly, by the way. Because I didn't speak French, and I loved my school here. So I cried, and it was super dramatic. I go to France, and for the first time in my life, I come very close to a culture that sees bodies, human bodies, not as sexual things, but just humans. And I'm going, what is happening here? People are walking around naked and nobody's sexualizing them. There are no men on the streets whistling at women. Mamacita, deliciosa.
catcalling.
Terrible. This doesn't happen there. And everybody was happy to talk about their sexuality. People were okay having these conversations on what they liked, what they didn't like. The movies were different. In the movies, people were naked. And it wasn't a movie that was prohibited for kids. It was just a movie.
It's just a body.
Yeah, it wasn't taboo to see yourself naked. For me as a 13-year-old girl, it was mind-blowing. I just discovered a different culture that was willing to explore who they were, and it helped me a lot. So when I came back, I was very assertive with my body image. I actually, I don't know if I told you this, but you can see my hair is very curly. When I was before I left to Paris, I would brush my hair because in El Salvador, most people have straight hair. Not naturally, they just straighten their hair. And curly hair wasn't appreciated in this country. And so I would brush my hair, but then because it was curly, it would become very puffy and horrible and dry, and it was horrible. So what I did is I would always put it in a bun, always. Imagine a 12-year-old in a bun.
Yeah.
I look like an old lady. And so when I went to Paris and I saw all these women with curly hair like mine, and my mom's partner, he was from Algeria. And one day he saw me and he's like, "How old are you?" And I was like, 12, 13. I was turning 13. And he's like, "Why do you have your hair in a bun? you look old. Why can't you just enjoy your hair?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know. Because they judge me in El Salvador. So he's like, try it just tomorrow. Wash your hair, leave it out dry, and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I did, and my hair was like this. It was
Beautiful.
beautiful, and it was long down to my butt. And I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And so when I came back to El Salvador, I was this whole different person. I had curly hair. I had lost a lot of weight because in Paris, you walk a lot.
Yeah, in Europe.
Yes, you're walking all the time. And so I was thinner. I had this beautiful curly hair. I didn't have braces anymore because they took the braces off. And now I was assertive.
Mm-hmm.
So I ditched my old friends and I got new friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's also part of exploring not just who you are, but your sexuality.
Yeah.
I was now comfortable with my body as it was changing.
Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful.
Yes, but who has that opportunity though?
And I like what you said, like how there nobody was catcalling or just seeing bodies as objects.
Mhm.
I think that's when the conversation gets really interesting, because you're the problem, not them. Like you're the problem for sexualizing and objectifying bodies and other people.
Mhm.
Like the conversation always starts with oneself. Why do we feel uncomfortable
Yes.
seeing a naked body or a little girl with like short shorts?
Yes. Which actually brings me back to another point that we haven't talked, is obviously my experience was in 1990. I'm doing the math, people. I'm doing the math.
96.
Yeah, it was like 1995.
That's when I was born.
Oh my God! Okay, this podcast is over. Bye.
JK, no, but I was actually born in 1996.
Thank you. Thanks for reminding me about my age. But so I know France has also changed a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the best examples of my journey sexually living in France is in a movie called Mignons.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Mignons, do yourself a favor.
Cuties in English.
Cuties in English, and what's it in Spanish? In Spanish, it has like a silly name too, like niñitas, or I can't remember. But yeah, cuties in English, mignons in français, and that was on Netflix. They took it out now, but it was you could watch it on Netflix.
We used it as a case study for our acting classes.
Correct.
She's also my coach, my acting coach.
Yay, doing it all. And so Mignons for me was one of the best examples of a movie that touches on young girls' sexuality and the difficulty of navigating this world nowadays, where you have to be a Beyonce, right? But you don't want to be called a slut. Like there's this fine line where you have to explore your sexuality and put it out there. But also, you don't want to be called a slut. It's like I need to look like I'm sexual, but then not have a big like a high body count. Yeah. That's stupid. It's stupid. Not to mention, let's quickly just say this. How would you know somebody's body count?
You wouldn't.
You wouldn't know. Men, not just men, but people would say like, oh, you're stretched out. Even with the hymen that they say that they break when you're a virgin, that's not true.
That's not true.
Do yourself another favor. Go to Netflix right now. Man, Netflix should pay us right now for all the advertising. But Netflix, we're here. Do yourself a favor. Go to Netflix. There is a documentary. I think it's called about pleasure, I think. Something like that. Just look up pleasure. See what happens. There's a documentary that explains how the female anatomy works and how female gets sexually aroused during intercourse. Why is it important for you? Because most men don't know that.
They don't know that. It blows my mind.
They don't know
It blows my mind.
Yes. And so it will help you to know at least biologically where things are.
Yeah.
So you know where to touch. You know what to do. And what you're doing that you've seen in porn doesn't work.
I hate how porn has literally fucked up girls' self-esteem and like the expectations in bed are way out of what reality actually is.
Yes.
It's crazy. And when you realize that, there's like so much, I don't know, like freedom in like understanding that that's not real.
Yes.
And whatever you see in porn is completely like it's acting.
It is acting. Hello, colleagues. It is either probably they have more money than us.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. pornography, and it affects all our lives, right? I watch pornography, you watch pornography, my partners have watched pornography. I can honestly say that the people I have been with have played or have done pornography moves that I just look at them. I'm like, what is happening here? He's like, oh baby, I'm like, it's not doing anything for me.
Yeah.
I had this guy. I'm going to tell you once again, amalgamation of people, but this is one of the things that happened. This guy I was seeing, he he got a bottle of wine, okay, and as we're making out, he starts pouring the wine on me. It's red, by the way. And I'm going, this is a brand new bra. I just bought this. And he's like, oh, baby, it's so sexy. I'm like going, it's sexy for who? For you? Because one, I feel sticky. Two, it's cold and you just destroyed the best new bra I had. That's super expensive and you're not going to pay for that.
Now we have to go to clean ourselves up.
I know. It's like, how is that sexy for me? It wasn't. And so once again, exploration of your sexuality. That wasn't sexy for me, but it was for him because he saw it in porn. I wonder if he felt anything. I don't think he did. I think it was more like a he assumed that he had to do something like that.
Or maybe he was exploring and that's fine. Maybe,
and that's fine.
You know?
And that's fine. Although I don't think he was exploring. No? It looked more like rehearsed.
Yeah, rehearsed.
Like practice. Like, okay, this is what I saw in porn. Let me try it, right?
Okay, so then
no, it didn't work out. So that's an example of how pornography really affects our psyche when it comes to sexuality. And to come back to Andrea's question, how we do that and how we overcome that, I will tell you this. At least for me, you can tell your story with you, but for me, and I'm much older than Maria, so I've had, sadly, I can say that I have a lot of history of violence, sexual violence in my past. The first time I encountered sexual violence was at the age of 16, and it really affected me. And it left a legacy of fear of porn, because then I had to figure out what was happening to me. And I didn't know. I didn't have the tools. I was a 20-year-old confused. I didn't know what was happening to me. And so because of what had happened in my trauma years, in my teens. So this is Andrea. What I could say from my experience is what I did is I realized that, jumping from one sexual experience to another wasn't working for me. Alcohol wasn't working for me. Something wasn't working for me because it didn't feel right. So this is what I did. I went to university to study political science. And one of the classes I took was sexuality and politics. Okay. And one of the books that totally changed my life is this one. It's called Not for Sale. This book is Canadian, and this book has different chapters with different stories from people who have been, they're academics and professors, who study sexuality and pornography. Then you have stories of women who have been strippers and prostitutes, saying that they turned to this life because they had been raped as kids or as young people. And so they were always looking how to take their power back, the power that was taken away from them back. And so you have stories like that. You have stories of men who were porn actors and how that affected their relationships with their partners and how they realized that they were part of the problem. And things like that. So this book and the rest of my classes on sexuality, and I did another one on love, for example, really helped me understand how we relate to each other and how the ideas I had on sexuality were completely wrong. There are two things, Maria, the lessons that I learned before I stopped talking about my experience. One is that all of us work under a heterosexual sexuality. What does that mean? That for us, our sexuality is penetration. That's what we've been told by pornography, that women serve men, that women are there for the pleasure of men. And women, when we're having sex and we get turned on through this heterosexual sexuality, we look at ourselves through the male gaze. So what we're doing is, like, we're having sex, we're not thinking of our partners, we're thinking of how we look to our partners, and that's the turn on. We not heterosexual sexuality. So that's the one thing that I realized, that I had fallen into this trap of being only sexual within the norms of pornography or what we've been told that sexuality is.
Yeah.
Pleasure for men means pleasure for us, means penetration, ultimately. That's what it meant. Second point, that women don't have a sexuality because we've never explored it. So we don't even know, something that is very underrated, smell.
Yeah.
Smell is so important. You have to have chemistry with that person that their smell is intoxicating. That is nowhere to be found in pornography. But for women and for men, because I've talked to some men that they tell me, I still remember your smell. And I go, me too, because there's chemistry. Okay. So smell is something very important to sexuality. And we don't explore that because it's not part of the paradigm of heterosexual sexuality. Okay. So what happens is we don't know what we want.
Yeah.
We don't know what it feels like to have our sexuality. It could be, seeing something, feeling a specific touch in parts that are not private parts. It doesn't have to be the breast. It doesn't have to be our vaginas. It could be our arm. For some people, it could be the hair, the neck. There's so many things to explore, but we don't explore it because our partners don't think that's part of our asexuality. Not even our sexuality, asexuality.
I love that you say that because in Mexico, we never talked about this, but I experienced sexual abuse when I was 16 as well.
My God, and we've never talked about this. That's another episode. Also at 16.
Yeah.
Me too. Oh my God.
And
episode 3.
Yeah. And I've never really openly talked about this, so it's the first time for me.
Okay.
And yes, when you experience something like that, you really feel like someone has taken something really important away from you.
Yes.
And it's an uphill battle to take that back. Yeah. But I'm not talking about, sleeping with people, just it's not it's more like it's like a process in where you question everything and nothing all at once. And for me, what helped me understand myself is just do whatever feels right and take it from there, in each point and moment in my life. For the last 4 years I was single.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed at that time.
Yes.
I had other partners. I have had ex-boyfriends, and with every single one of them, our sexual lives, our sexual relationship was different. And then I was learning, and I took everything that I liked from each relationship, and then try to discard everything that I didn't. But I never felt completely comfortable in any relationship.
Yeah, me neither.
So it takes a lot to understand that we put so much pressure on ourselves as women to to please our partner, and you forget to the sex 101, to feel comfortable. If you're not comfortable, then you're not in safe, you're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. I'm not criticizing or shitting on women that like to be polyamorous and have sex and have fun. That's completely fine. From my experience, I like to feel a connection, and it doesn't have to be emotional connection. But when you said smell, obviously pornography you can't go there because it's on a screen. It's it's a 2D experience.
And they don't incorporate that in the narrative. You never see a porn actor going, I love this smell.
And also something else that I think that it really helped me is to understand my love language. And one of my top love language is words of affirmation.
Yeah,
so for
same.
me, what turns me on is dirty talk.
Oh, me too. But also soft talk too.
Yeah,
romantic
talk.
Yeah.
Not completely dirty.
Yeah, a combination of both.
It's a combination.
Yes,
so
I agree.
It's really interesting because in porn you just see full on penetration and
pain.
and pain
It's like,
and
oh, you're pulling my hair. Yes.
and
it's like, what?
and talking about pain.
Yeah.
I it's so funny, like hearing my male friends talk, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh yeah, she couldn't handle me, it was too big for her, she was too tight. I'm like, you don't know shit about women.
Yeah.
If it hurts her, it's
Yeah.
because you didn't turn her on enough.
Exactly.
Our anatomy, our
Yeah.
female bodies work to get wet enough
Yes. Because they're excited.
for
Yeah.
your little wee wee to go
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Like, we give birth to children. You
Yes.
really think she's not going to handle your D?
It's just that she doesn't want it because you're not turning her on, because you don't know her anatomy.
So it's really interesting. And to sum it all up, and how it's taken a lot of resources. It's taken a lot of reading, a lot of, alone time with myself. 4 years single. It's a pretty long time.
It's a good time though.
And it's just doing what feels right and exploring along the way. Like, you'd be surprised of how you can learn something new every single day about yourself.
Yeah.
And slowly heal whatever, even if you haven't experienced something like sexual abuse, maybe the patriarchy or social stigmas make you, put up these walls.
Yeah.
And those are even are really hard to put down
Yes.
as well. So it takes time. It takes a lot of self-love, I would say. That's what I would say for me. It's been my alone time.
I want to thank you for sharing your experience with me and with everyone here, because abuse is very hard to bring up ever just in it's with friends, with family members, with the therapist. It's hard. And I know, because for me it took me maybe 10 years to speak up about my abuse. And so thank you for sharing that with me. It means a lot.
It's been 10 years, and I think that now I am starting to feel comfortable with my sexuality.
Yes.
Right now, 26 years old.
And I do think too that what you're doing is very empowering, because that's how I felt too. The moment I opened up about it, I felt better, because I was able to say, this is my story, and I was able to own it. It was confusing at first. Like you say, it leaves a legacy of fear, of being uncomfortable with people,
of being not enough.
And and it's funny because it's not on us. Like, I remember before my abuse, I was such a happy person, and I had never kissed anybody. Like, I was so, everything was new, and I was so pure and everything. And then that happened, and it's almost like derailed my life. And then I was doing exactly what you're talking about. I was trying to find ways of getting back what was taken away from me. And I couldn't. And then you start drinking, and then you start partying, and then you start looking for more people. And then every guy you date, you expect that person to fill the cup. You go numb, or you jump. I had that thing too. Like, I went numb when I was having sex with people in my 20s. I would just numb. Or that when we were social settings, like at a party or whatever, and they would touch me, I would jump. Because I didn't trust anybody. So it was really hard when I got married. I remember I told my husband, I said, listen, I had to open up, because he was trying to touch me, and I was like, and I said, listen, this happened to me. You have to be very patient with me. And we were together for 15, 16 years. So he was very patient. But I do know that it affects the way you see yourself. It affects the way you relate to people. And so, so thank you for sharing that with us. And hopefully more women are going to be also brave enough to say, you know what, I'm not a victim here. This is part of my story that will make me stronger, and now steps towards healing, I would say, for people in general, because it doesn't apply only to women. Like, it applies to everybody who feels sexually oppressed, especially in this country. So let's recap. Okay. So we have in this country that we love, because it's our country.
We love it.
But here are the obstacles that we have, and we have to overcome. We have to overcome heterosexual standards of sexuality, because we live in a patriarchal, machista society that believes extremely in mysticism and religion, And so the role of sexuality in the development of a human is only seen for reproduction or pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
It's never seen as human development
Mm-hmm.
or part of exploring who you are. My advice to everybody.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to end with in this episode. This is what I would recommend you do. First of all, have that conversation with yourself and say, am I actually getting pleasure in my sexual encounters? Whether you're married, whether you're single, doesn't matter. Ask yourself if you're actually getting sexual pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make you happy? Or are you seeing it through the male gaze that you make your partner happy, and because he's happy, you're happy? And maybe you have to fake your orgasms, because he's happy, or whatever your situation is. Okay, so ask yourself, honestly, am I happy with my sexuality with my partner or the partners that I have?
Or with myself.
Here's the second part: masturbation. I encourage everybody, it's like I'm a teacher here.
So
I encourage everybody to masturbate. This is super important because this is how you find how your body works. And if you know how it works, then you can ask for what you need from your partner. And it's not a matter of telling the person, dude, you have no idea what you're doing.
No,
it's not that. It's saying, this is what I need. And trust me, the partner will be willing to do it.
They're going to thank you.
Yes, they're going to thank you. But the thing is, we need to explore. We need to know what feels good. Recently, I had this conversation with a male friend of mine, and he was telling me, so when you masturbate, he goes, do you fantasize about somebody? And I remember that I used to.
Mm-hmm.
Random people that I used to do that. And then I said to him, now I don't. Because I don't. For the past maybe I don't know, since June, I just don't do that. I think of me, which is super trippy. Because what you're doing is that not thinking of you in the male gaze, oh, I'm naked and sexy. No. It's listening to your body. So for example, I'll be like, oh, I feel cold here, or this feels warm, or I like this vibration, or it's being present, almost like acting. It's being present in the moment. And so I'm not thinking about anybody else. So when I told him that, he got angry. Not angry, but he was like, what? How is that possible? I'm like, because that's female sexuality. I am exploring outside the box, and I'm not gonna lie, it's much better. The moment I'm no longer thinking of anybody else, but feeling myself in my space, it's much better. And now I go, how am I going to let anybody else in my life now?
When I'm happy with myself.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would recommend you do that. Read a lot. Talk to your peers, to your female, your queer friends, and to your male allies, those men who are also unhappy with their heterosexual sexuality, and know there's more out there. Yeah. There's more out there. There's more pleasure that we're actually getting to. And so do that. And like you were saying, and for the guys who are listening, not a lot of guys listen to our podcast. I think it's mainly girls. But if you are listening to us, listen to this. If you're saying that a girl can take it, like Maria is saying, she's probably lying to you the whole way. If she's saying, oh, you're perfect, she's lying to you. Okay? If she's tight or it hurts her, it's because you're not good. But nobody will tell you that. Trust me, I've had bad experiences and I never told them. I just walked away.
Me too.
Right?
Me too.
And why
easier.
bother?
It's
exactly.
Easier.
Why bother? It's easier.
Yeah.
So don't be so proud, on what you think you're doing, because it's not working, probably. And that's how we're going to close this episode on that super sad note.
No, it's true. I feel like up until now in my current relationship, where I'm really open about what I like and what I want and everything, it's really been refreshing.
Yeah.
Because I've never had this before, and like you said, like in the past, you would just just why bother, touch the male ego, and you're just like, all right, it's okay. And when you find something that's like, oh, this feels good with someone who there's chemistry with, and on top of that you have like feelings for, it's priceless. So
Yeah.
right now in my life, that's where I am, and I'm really happy and comfortable with it.
Wonderful.
So
I love that.
it took 10 years.
It took it will take the time that it needs to take
Yeah.
for you to feel happy, explore your sexuality. And one more thing, people, don't judge others. And
Yeah.
don't look down on people because they explore whatever their case may be. They explore their sexuality, or they refuse to have sex, or they are having it doesn't matter. It's not your life. It's their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they will eventually come to terms with who they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So don't judge people, don't look down on people. Just do you.
Yeah.
Take care of you, take care of your body, be respectful, read a lot, have these conversations, but don't criticize people.
And
that's
also,
my best advice.
And to like end it right here,
because we can't end it. Like, you
Yeah.
see the problem here.
Always find that person who you can trust.
Yeah.
Because with any process, like, you always need someone to talk to.
Yes.
And if you need like anonymous people, then we're here.
We're here.
Because it's always easier when you have someone to talk to.
Yes.
And you're not alone in whatever process you're in right now, or you may be in the future. Then always try to have someone to be there for you.
Yeah.
To be your support.
Yeah, your tribe. You need to have your tribe, your community. So we're here. You can message
We can be your
us.
sex tribe.
We can be. This is like a chapter of sex education,
Okay.
like an episode of sex education.
I love that show.
Me
That's
too.
a good show.
That's
Go
a really
watch
good show.
Netflix.
Yeah. Oh my God. Next Netflix, you need to pay up. Pay up. Yeah, go watch that show. And like Maria said, we're here. Whatever you need, we're here. You can message us to your contacts. What's your IG and your TikTok?
My IG and my TikTok, both M as in Maria, F as in Fernanda, Bruson, MF Bruson.
And I am Vanessa Tomasino, all together, in Instagram, on TikTok, one N, one S, single letters for all last names and first names. And you can also leave your questions on Spotify, Apple Podcast. I think Apple Podcast also has it. And on YouTube. We are more than happy to answer questions.
And thank you, Andrea, for your question.
Thank you, Andrea, for these tough questions. And yes, and for thinking that we are Vaginas Unfiltered. I guess it could also be Vaginas Unfiltered.
I mean, for this podcast, yes. Yeah. For this episode, yes.
Yes.
Vaginas Unfiltered.
Yeah. So thank you, Andreita. Gracias for your question. And we hope to receive more of your questions and see you next episode.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.